In my head, you have held me in your arms. In my head, I've been witness to your charms 1,000 times. You have sung me a love song in my head.
Hello, you're very welcome to the latest episode of the Attic Sessions, and delighted that this month in February we are joined by one of Ireland's busiest and certainly most successful writers, Eoin Colfer. Eoin, delighted you're finally in the attic.
I finally made it after, illness, rain, flood.
Our illness, by the way,
Yeah.
Eoin is perfectly healthy. We've been...
We had illness in our house as well. Our son was off as well last week, so it worked out.
there's been nasty stuff
Yeah,
going around.
yeah.
But we're all reasonably, the cameraman is not going to fall over, and we're all in good form, and delighted that you're here.
If he falls over, he's straight down the stairs. So we don't want
We
that.
can't, we're
We don't
hanging
want
on.
that to happen.
Absolutely not. And I was in my extensive preparation for this
Yeah, you
interview.
did 2 years prep.
I
It
did
was
2
the
years.
most expensive prep ever. Travel
Well,
around the country.
For the few people who don't know, Eoin was laureate in Ogue, and I was lucky enough to work as project manager on the project when Eoin was there. And so I have heard some stories before.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying to.
So I will attempt not to lead you in the direction of the stories that
Yes,
you might...
I do tend to fall back on. I have like a collection of 20 stories, and I never know in an event what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And I kind of just judge the room and see how old people are, and then throw out 2 or 3
But they're
stories.
great, and they change in the retelling anyway, because there's always something
Yeah.
that you're kind of...
And you've been at events with me where I can see, okay, this is not going well. I need to pull out the fart story.
You
It's
can't
it's
go wrong
only
with a
I have
fart
to.
story.
I have to pull it. Yeah, so it's terrible, but it works.
But not in the attic, because attics tend to
no,
be a
not
bit...
in the
No,
attic,
no,
no.
no, absolutely not. And I was trying to count up the number of books that Wikipedia told me
Yeah.
you have written. And it could be somewhere in the mid-30s. Does that sound about?
It's up to 40 now. It's 40 something, but that's including graphic novels. I've tried to count. Believe it or not, I've tried to count it myself a few times, and I always get bored. Around 37.
But you know, you've written them. So like
Yeah.
how, and you really probably began in the mid-90s. So
My first book was published in 98.
so 20
20
years ago?
next year, yeah.
40 books, like 2 books a year?
Well, now some of them, for example, would be quite small books, like The Legend of Captain Crow or stuff like that,
Yeah.
or Going Potty, they would only take a week to write.
Okay.
They often take a lot longer to edit
Yeah.
because with picture books you really have to chop the words down.
Yeah. But there are big thick ones as well. like,
Yeah, I mean, Airman is a big 100,000er, and there's a few of those,
yeah.
So
how long might that sort of length?
those books usually take me about 9 months to do a first draft, and then depending on how clean they are going in,
Yeah.
2 to 3 months to polish.
Yeah.
So it would be a year to do the big novels.
Yeah.
But the little books only take a couple of weeks.
And getting the ideas, like,
Yeah, I'm actually, that's harder now. I've slowed down in the last couple of years. I still have the ideas, but I don't have the faith in them anymore. I used to think every idea I ever had was amazing, and I then wrote 40 books on the strength of that. And now I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe at this stage of my life, I should be a bit more choosy.
yeah.
And so I have a lot of ideas, but I'm really taking my time to pick the ones that I like, that I really want to do. And a lot of it actually changed when my dad died, and that was 4 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I started to think, or just get perspective on stuff. And I thought, right, you've done 25 books about fantasy stories. Do you need to do another one? I mean,
Yeah.
what have you got something else to say about leprechauns, or have you done that? And so
Though presumably there's a big bank of people on the other side saying, well, yes, you do, because they're very popular and
Yeah,
they
I mean,
sell. And
yeah, I think I will go back to that. But at the moment, for example, I have a book coming out in October with Andrew Duncan and Giovanni Regano, which is about the economic migrants from Africa up to Europe. And like there you can say, yes, now this is something that
Yeah.
needs to be told. Admittedly, it's been told, and this is something we have to be very careful about. It's 3 middle-aged white middle-class men talking about African migrants.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to be. There's a fine line there between representing something honestly and being patronising.
But like going back to one of your
Yeah.
early books, like Benny and
Yeah,
Omar was,
Yeah.
you know, getting inside the head of a culture that
Yeah.
you had little to do with, but you were living.
Yeah, I felt that one. I felt again. I was so young. I mean,
Yeah.
I was. I don't think I was. Probably wasn't even 30, and I was like, no problem.
Yeah.
I live here. That just entitles me to write about it. But now I would be more circumspect
Yeah.
about that, and that's happened to me before. Before I started writing kids' books, I wrote plays, and one of the first plays I wrote was a play called The Answer Machine, which was about a school principal who basically is the answer machine. So everyone comes to his door and he has the answer for them. But then he finds out this girl's been abused by her dad and he doesn't have the answer to that. And I, if I'm honest now, I wrote that as a hot topic play. I had no experience in that area. I was trying to say, well, what can I write about that will get people interested? And I wrote this play, and I really wrote it from casual knowledge. And afterwards, I remember a lady came to me and she said, I knew as soon as that one girl walked in the door, I knew what was going on. And she really confided in me about stuff I can't really talk about. And I just felt like such a fake, such a fraud, because I had manipulated that response out of her, not really caring. All I wanted was the response. And I've come to appreciate that in recent years, that I'm not going to do that anymore. And the play I have at the moment is about MS, and that's something I do feel connected to, through a friend.
Yeah.
So I feel not entitled, but I feel comfortable.
So there has to be some kind of authentic link between what you write
I think
about.
that's fair. I mean, if you're writing about leprechauns,
Yeah.
far knock yourself out.
Yeah, but they could be leprechauns that represent something
Oh yeah,
else.
obviously. I mean, the leprechaun in my story, Holly, she represents kind of the glass ceiling and the Celtic tiger, and all of that comes through. But if you disguise a little bit, you don't worry too much about it. But if you're blatantly writing about a very sensitive topic, then you need to be sensitive to that topic, and not just glib.
I was in a classroom yesterday with a group of school kids talking about fake news.
Yeah.
And talking about how stories, how do you respond to stuff that's happening now, and what writers might do. And it occurred to me that Arthur Miller in the 50s, when America was going through its cyclical kind of hysteria, but it was towards communists and that sort of thing, he decides to go back 300 years to the witch trials and write about the witch trials. And so like there are lots of ways of dealing with what's happening now. But,
that is one of the best examples, I think, and I think that's one of the first plays I ever saw, The Crucible, and my mum was in it.
Was she really?
Yeah. So she.
Which part did
she
have?
played the lead, the woman who saw the girl.
Was it Abigail?
Abigail. Was it Abigail who she plays the. So I was exposed to that very young. I remember doing my lines with my mother when I would have been her lines.
Yeah.
When I would have been 6.
Yeah.
And she was doing The Crucible.
Uh-huh.
I think my dad may have directed it, so I really don't want to think about
Family
it.
affair.
Yeah, so it's a great way to be introduced to literature, doing lines from that level of play. With your mum when you're a kid. There's not many finer ways in. So
would theatre almost be the first kind of love?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. I grew up doing my mum's lines, and that became my thing. We would sit down and I'd just do her lines with her, and I did all the other parts, and she would play herself, her own part. And then, so when I finished teacher training college, Jackie, my wife, and I went straight into the drama group. I dragged Jackie after me, and I realised very quickly that Jackie was a great actress and that I was not a great actor. And so I started to write the plays for the group, and that was how I started. And I was much happier writing. It takes a certain kind of courage to be on stage, I think, to believe that the audience will believe that you're someone else. And I never had that kind of self-confidence, and writers often don't. So I was much happier. It takes enough courage, I think, to write a play and put it on.
Yeah.
Because you're there behind the curtain and you're looking at the audience, and every line that doesn't land, you're like, oh, Why didn't
There's
I get
something
them?
about collaboration as well in
Yeah.
writing for the stage that, you know,
Yeah.
when you're writing your novel,
Yeah.
it's you,
Yeah.
it's the blank screen or the page
Yeah.
or whatever. But what you write is what you write. But, you know, if you write for the stage, it's almost
Yeah.
like that's the first step.
Yeah.
And then you start talking to the director and the actors,
Yeah.
and it might
Oh,
evolve.
it does. Well, in my experience, we did a musical recently, and we had a week of workshop, and with the actual actors and singers. And when after having had that week, I went away, and I thought, this guy's really funny. I'm going to give him loads of this kind of joke.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or this girl has an amazing face. I'm going to give her loads of, you know, so her emotions are just bare on her
Yeah.
face because she can really do that, and
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Whereas in your book, as you say, it's all you,
It's all you.
and the screaming Arctic blankness of the screen or the page.
I was watching. We have been binge watching the West Wing
West Wing.
over the last while,
Yeah.
and so we've got to the stage that we're now watching the bonus material because we've run out of episodes. But it's really interesting to hear Aaron Sorkin talking about his writing process and how, you know, he'll be watching a party one night and one of his characters, CJ, is or it's actually the actress has this little party piece called The Jackal.
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks later she comes and she reads her script, and he has written the party
Yeah,
piece into
yeah.
the script because he was kind of so entranced by that. And there's
Yeah.
this sense that it is that collaboration. It's so there must be very little ego in your writing because you're prepared to share.
Well, when you're writing plays, I think that was a very valuable way to start writing plays, because your ego gets stripped away very quickly, or else you become a total egomaniac. I don't know, but in my case, I realized very quickly that the end result still had my name on it, and if it was a better end result, why was I resisting? So I began to listen to actors and directors, but also you have to know when to say no. That's because you have to accept that most people's ideas, including my own, are bad. You know, so you have to learn to say, no, that's really not going to work in this situation. But so long as you don't just hammer one person all the time,
Sure.
and you take everything on board, I think people are happy if you take one or two things they say on board and they're good and you just accept them. And but a lot of the time, it's not good, and it's knowing that difference. And I don't know it all the time. A lot of times I will reject something, and then I realize later, oh, that actually, you know, that would have been a nice idea. But myself and Liam, who does the music and I do the lyrics, we have like big standoffs about, he says, you know, this word doesn't, and it's literally down to syllables. That syllable doesn't sound good on that note, and I'm saying, oh, you're just, what does sounds totally fine. And he's always right about the sounding. So, you know, you do learn to listen. And so then when you go on to write novels and your editor comes back and says, well, I like everything except the story and the characters.
Well, okay.
But I like the cottage words. You know, you
Settings is good.
don't take it personally. You tend to just sit down and let it I used to go straight back. But now, I mean, yesterday, for example, I got notes in for a book I'm doing with PJ, and in the old me would have just sat down last night and done those, and got them off today.
Yeah.
But now I tend to say, okay,
You're going to let it settle?
let it settle, really think about it, drive around for a while. I drive up and down to Wexford a lot, and it's great because I can literally get through a whole plot. I don't have any music on.
Yeah.
And that works out really well for me. But
like focus is one thing that I've noticed
Yeah.
working with you, in that I vividly remember being on a plane with you coming
Yeah.
back from somewhere, and you've got your laptop open
Yeah.
and you're
yeah,
doing edits, I guess, but you
yeah.
were able to cut out everything that was
Yeah.
going on, but you know, around you or whatever, and just sort of focus on that particular task, which was
less
amazing.
and less as I get older. When I was in my mid-20s, I could be hanging upside down in a train to Hungary, and I remember being on a top bunk on a sleeper carriage going through Yugoslavia or something, interrailing, and scribbling notes. I mean, I couldn't do that now. I'm very spoiled. You know, I have to have my computer, and I have to have preferably be in my own office. But edits I can do. I can do edits all right.
Yeah.
But I do find now I take them more seriously. Edits used to be a clerical labour for me, where it was literally just I was doing secretarial work. But now I realise that that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, your edits have to be as good as your draft, So
So tell us a bit about the play that's on now.
Yeah.
It's touring in a number of different sort of venues around the country, isn't it?
I think the actor's term for it is the M50 tour.
The M50 tour.
Have you heard that?
Well, I've heard all these access venues that got built around the M50.
So I don't think there's anything on the M50. There might be 2 or 3, but it's the kind of the smaller theatres, and it's like we're circling the drain of the inner city, the big ones. So eventually I think Don would hope, and Ben would, and I would hope to get it on in the Peacock or something like that. But it's just finished Wexford, 2 or 3 nights. 3 nights. It was a great run there, and that was a real cauldron of fire for Don, because he had a guy from Skibbereen had to go to Wexford and do a Wexford accent for Wexford people, and we're very.
Are you not very tolerant?
Well, we're kind of very proud about our accents, so we feel nobody can do it.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
And
because
it's a very distinct accent, and my accent is not strong.
Yeah.
Compared to, if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, yes, it is strong, but compared to people who have lived in Wexford all their lives, and I've learned to moderate a little bit because I travel, so they're kind of all sitting there like this, just waiting for Don to come on. But he's so good. He had them at Havia, as they say.
Oh, he's mesmerising, Don Richley. He can do anything, absolutely anything. And you mentioned briefly a little earlier that the MS is part of it.
Many years ago, when it was a friend of mine, and he still is a friend of mine, a good friend. I suppose one of my oldest friends, I suppose, from all the way back to secondary school, and he would always be, since he was about, I don't know, maybe 27 or 26, he would be giving out about this pain in his leg and his back, and we'd always be slagging him, because he went to the doctors a few times, didn't find anything, so he was kind of the malingerer, as he was known, and I was coming home from Africa just for a couple of days, and I said to him, I texted him, I'm on the way home, can you come out for a drink, or is your leg at you, kind of messing, and he texted me back, my leg's at me and my back, I just got being diagnosed with MS, I bet you feel like shit now, so he, even at that extreme moment, Irishmen will slag each other.
Black humour,
Even then, at the lowest he'd been in a long time. So we met up that night. It was quite emotional. We talked about it, and he talked about how he was feeling. And over the years, I would kind of question him, maybe a bit too much. I don't know, maybe, but I wanted to know what he was going through, and it kind of culminated in this play. And initially, it was only 15 minutes long. It was part of a thing called Wex 4, where 4 of us did a 15-minute pit for the 40th anniversary of Wexford Arts Centre. So there was Billy Roach, John Banville, Colm Tabine, and myself, 4 people who got their start there, kind of. And Don did this piece, and there was a really strong reaction to it. I think because it touched a lot of people, because everyone has a connection to MS. Even either first-hand family or friends, and so there was interest in expanding it. So Ben Barnes came back to me, and I was so happy to be working with Ben Barnes. If he had said, let's do a play about dolphins, and we all will dress up as dolphins, I would have said absolutely. But to do a play with Ben, and Don is the actor, and I can write about the topic I want to write about. And I was at a crossroad in my life, really, where I was just wondering, what would I do? I didn't really want to launch into another fantasy series.
Because Artsmith Found had finished, and Warp had also...
Warp had finished, and I got offered this Iron Man job, and that was a nice little holdover, because it was a 1-book shot deal, and it would take me 5 months. So that kind of gave me breathing space. Yeah. But really what I was doing was I was pushing the question further down the road, what I was going to do. So when this came to me, I thought, this is perfect. And as soon as it was mentioned, my head started crackling with ideas. And that, for me, is a sign. If I start considering the project straight away, I don't know, it's probably the same with you. And so I said yes, so we did it really quickly. And we did it last summer then. We did it in Waterford in the Theatre Royal, and we had a couple of weeks there, and it went down really well. So on the the back of that, we got a producer and a national tour.
And has your pal seen it?
Yes, Declan came every step of the way. He came. I gave him the script for the short piece. I brought him to the short piece. I gave him the stick for the longer piece. He came down to the longer piece, and then we had the closing night in Wexford. I said, "Will you come down to the place?" He said, "Jeez, I've seen it twice. I'll go to the drinks after though." So we went for a drink afterwards. But yeah, he loved it, and he said to me afterwards, "Oh, just get out of my head, get out of my head." So I think that was a compliment.
That is a compliment.
I'm not sure, but yeah, he did like it, and I had the funny thing now is that people are going to it who have MS, and you don't know how people will react because people are not the disease, so they don't become, you know, now you are MS person.
Yeah.
Like you still are that you person you've always been, that sparkling, scintillating, funny, whatever, bad humoured.
You're
person.
not defined by your
No,
condition.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that's the real point of this play.
Yeah.
Is that this guy has MS, he's in a bad way, but he is still himself, and he's still the funniest guy in the room.
So it's in the Pavilion next week, which is the week of the
I think
23rd,
24th.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it's going from there, but if you go onto Facebook or Google or whatever and just put in My Real Life, Don Wycherley, you'll
list of
find out
venues will
where
come
it's
up.
going. Yeah.
Very good. So you mentioned also that you're working on something with PJ Lynch,
Yes.
who is the current laureate in Ogue. Indeed, lovely man. We love him. So what is that? What is that project?
Well, I've been a big fan of PJ's for years. I would say decades, and you know, I think our first time I met him was 5 or 6 years ago at the Book Awards, and I was really kind of starstruck because if you've ever read, and I'm sure you have, or looked at his version of A Christmas Carol, it's incredible. Yeah. It's stunning stuff. So I was a big fan, and so then when we did Once Upon a Place with
which is
behind us there, with Little Island, we got PJ to do it. And in that process, PJ, it worked out really well. It was one of those moments of synchronicity where he wanted to get away from doing another book that was all oils.
Yeah.
He wanted to do something quick, and then we wanted black and white, and we only wanted colour for the cover.
Yeah.
So it went from, my initial idea was to ask loads of different Irish artists, and I think you said, let's get one. And we got PJ Lynch. I mean,
well, somebody clever said, I don't think that was me.
Wasn't that you?
Somebody clever said it.
And he did it. So we got to know each other, and I was saying, oh, you know, I'd love to do a book. And I think we may have been out somewhere, and he foolishly agreed. And about a week later, then I had the initial thing over to him. But it's been completely changed since then because it's been coming out with Walker, and they were more interested in a longer book. So I've had to beef it up a little bit for the better. I think it's much nicer. So it's about a boy and his dog. And if that sounds like the most boring, hackneyed thing ever, it's not what you might expect. It's very different.
Okay, what type of dog?
That's up to PJ. Well, definitely, it's a rescue dog.
Oh, very good.
Rescue dog.
Baxter, can you hear that? Yep.
So that's the whole point. He rescues the dog, then the dog rescues him. So it's kind of there's a nice.
Sounds
Baxter
good.
heard us talking about dogs.
He did. That sounds good, Bax, doesn't it? Very good.
So we're going through dog pictures at the moment, and it's driving my son mad because he'd love a dog, but he has allergies. So we're looking into it.
Yeah.
Because we want to get a rescue dog, but it's very hard to get a rescue dog that's hyperallergenic. And his eyes, if it was just a little bit of allergy, but his eyes
he starts
swell.
streaming, do they?
Oh no, they close.
Oh right.
He's like Barry McGuigan in Texas, you know, they just, and he's just red and he can't see anything, so you can't really have that. So he says, you know, I'd pet him and then wash my hands, and I say, Sean, that's not gonna. But we're looking into it.
Yeah. No, there will be a solution.
Yeah.
So the PJ project when is that likely to be out?
I'd say it would be out maybe around October. It depends on because we haven't started illustrating it yet, but the illustrations will be black and white.
Yeah.
So I think PJ could probably get it done in a couple of months.
Yeah.
If I go and sit outside his house.
Okay.
In my car.
Well, PJ knows if he wants a model of a border collie, he's
got one.
He's
right
very
there.
much
He but sure, PJ already did.
He did,
PJ
yeah.
already
He did a
big-
brilliant picture
Baxter,
of it,
yeah.
which
That's
is
right, yeah, so-
amazing. And what then after that? Any kind of sense of what would be the next thing?
I'm really enjoying theatre, so I might do another play. But I think ultimately I want to get back to the kids' books. I mean, I'm going to have 3 collaborations coming out this year, probably. 2 all picture books, I suppose, if you count the graphic novels. So it's about time I got back into
The
finding
word.
a nice topic
Yeah.
for a kids' book. I'd like to move down an age a bit maybe, and go more forcefully into comedy, and then alternate with an adult book. So then when I'm not doing an adult book, I'm really having a laugh.
Yeah.
That's my current plan,
Very good.
but it's very nebulous. But I am working on 4 or 5 novels. It's just which one pulls ahead.
Gets that sizzling in your head going that you were
gets
talking
the sizzle going.
Yeah.
And then I'll work on that. But at the moment, I have the play going on, and we're also trying to sell our Christmas musical in the States.
Oh well.
So that's that would be. I'm spending a lot of time on that, and I'm the theatre. It's I love being in the theatre. I love the smell of the theatre. I love being backstage. I love the buzz around it. But it's a really tough world, and
very expensive to put on.
only Martin McDonagh's making any money.
Yeah.
The rest of us, I'm very lucky in that Artsmith Found continues to be very good to me, so I can take a year out and do I'm not taking a year out. I'm working really hard, but I'm not earning. You don't earn any money, but.
Presumably you read that article about Donal Ryan's.
Has he gone back to work?
He's gone back to work, yeah, because
That's incredible. Like Donal Ryan.
best-selling novelist, and he can't.
How many
support
awards
his
has
family.
Donal won? Every award basically.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The economics of writing are scary, I think.
Well, I mean, sometimes people say, you look at the book charts in Ireland, and number 1 book might be 500 books, and if you do the maths, if that's 500 books, then that is probably
40 cent a book or something like that, maybe.
if you're doing well.
Yeah.
So it's not. I remember the first book I had out. Good old Robert Dunbar put it on Pat Kenny's radio show, and then after that it got on the Toy Show, and it was the number 1 book at Christmas, kids book, because directly of the Toy Show and Robert Dunbar. And so that was the number 1 book at Christmas, and that year I think I made from writing €1,400. Now that book took me a year to write.
Yeah.
So if you work that,
it's not even
it's not
Starbucks coffee.
No. So, but people thought, oh, you're number 1 at Christmas.
You're made. Yeah.
When you giving up the job. I was like, we can't even go on holidays to Kerry for a week on that. So I know what it's like, and it was like that for a long time. So most writers have a job.
Yeah.
But there is a thing now where, young writers are just kind of giving up everything and saying, right, I'm going to be a writer.
But you have to live a life, and you have to kind of have experiences, and,
Yeah.
you don't
I think it's, with me, I come from I grew up I was a young adult in the 80s, and it was just hammered into us: get your job, and do your hobby, or do your passion in the afternoon or in the evenings. And then if you want to do it enough, you will do it.
Yeah.
And then give up your job.
Yeah.
So I'm very puritanical like that, I suppose. But at the same time, I had a brother, or I have a brother, and he gave up work for a couple of years to give acting a go. Oh, I was like, yeah, do it, go for it, So maybe I'm just jealous. Maybe I wished I had done that. I mean, but it worked out fine for me. But I would have. It would have been nice to have that bohemian couple of years.
Well, maybe that's what your 60s will be about.
I'll have him in 10 years' time. I'll be a bohemian 62-year-old.
Now, you did bring something to read.
I did. I brought a page from the play.
Very
because
good.
I have no confidence in when I'm reading out my work, because it for me, I often think books aren't supposed to be read out. And every time I start to write a book, I say I'm going to write just 1 or 2 pages. So when I have to read something, I'll read these 2 pages, and so it's like a little vignette. But I never do, and I find when I try to read them, then they often don't work. So what I've done is I've brought a page from the play, and it's just one page.
Super.
And we don't have the published version yet. And so the idea behind this is that this guy Noel is leaving a message on the tape recorder, taking a leaf out of Krapp's book, and for his best mate Richard, and he wants him to do a speech for him, as he says, for the afters. And you think, okay, he must be getting married, but as we find out, maybe not. And he's giving him some advice on how to write the speech. So I was thinking maybe something light for starters, huh? A few yarns to break the tension, build me up a little, you know, make me look good. I don't have a lot of heroics on the CV, but I do have this one thing. It's a bit all about me, so I don't go on about it. You know what people in Wexford are like. Even Mother Teresa wouldn't get an easy ride around here. It'd all be, well, would you look at your one and her orphans? So you learn early to keep your mouth shut. No good deed goes unpunished and all that. But there was this one thing. So I was maybe 22 when I did this thing, this noble thing. I was on my way down to the 147 club on the main street for a few games of snooker, and I saw this crowd of young lads, only 15 or 16 years old, but they're savages at that age, like mad dogs they are. So anyway, they were bunched around something, all hooting and yelling and that. So keep the head down, says I to myself, don't cross the streams and all that. But then I peeped over and I see a flash of red in the middle of the bunch, like a scarf or red hair or something, like a new romantic might have. So fair enough, if it's a new romantic, best of luck to you boys and give 'em one for me. But then I hear a scream and I know it's a girl. So now I'm on the horns of a dilemma, as the fella said. Them are only youngsters, I know, but there's a pack of them, and it's possible they'll mark my face. But with no regard for my own safety, over I go, putting on the Wexford face. You know, the one, like I'm so hard, I can't believe this sort of thing is going on in my presence. And I says, here now, youngsters, what are ye playing at, like? And one of the chaps who I recognised as a cur of the highest order, who was a well-known pilferer of single fags from a fella's box so he could never be nabbed, the slyest of the sly. So anyways, he says to me, he says, hold the horses there, Rambo. Don't be getting hot and bothered. It's only a traveller. And I looked again. And Jesus Christ, it was only a traveller. They were teasing. So I was about to keep on going to the snooker hall when I says to myself, no, this is not right. So I set the shoulders like and pushed through the gurriers and says I loud, aggressive. That's enough now, girls. You should be getting home now. Boss goes on. Well, there was a tense moment there. The kind of moment where Clint would be sucking on the cigar and the castanets would be clicking. And sure, and then the lad weighs it up and decides to let it go. The point being that I was prepared to get this face messed up for a traveller. Think about that now. Think about the dignity and strength involved in that decision. People might call me a hero, but I say I'm just an ordinary man, like Nelson Mandela or Jesus.
Fantastic. And you can hear Don Wycherley
doing a lot better.
Doing a lot better, but delivering that with gusto, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's good, Don. He's great.
Well, listen, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you.
My pleasure.
And hopefully you have noticed that I haven't asked you a question about Artemis Fowl movies.
Wow.
I haven't asked you about your extensive touring schedule.
Or no, you know, the top one not to be asked is Harry Potter. That's I get that.
What about Harry Potter criticising Piers Morgan on Twitter?
No, just like, you know, what do you think about Harry Potter? Or do you know where J.K. Rowling lives? Or have you met J.K. Rowling? Or usually there's... So I shouldn't have brought it up.
Well, we'll bring you back.
Because you didn't.
We'll bring you back another time and ask you all the questions that we shouldn't be asking you. But it's been great to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat. And best of luck with the play and all the other projects. The dog is open to offers, as we said. Yeah. And again, thanks a lot, Eoin Colfer.
Thanks, Nessa. It's my pleasure.
So that's... we're going to leave it there for the Attic Sessions for February. Next month, we're actually going to be on the road. We are going to the Ennis Book Club Festival, and we're going to be capturing the flavour of the events that are happening there. So looking forward very much to bringing you that episode. and please keep watching.
Yes, I know that I'm just a dreamer. Yes, I know that I'm just a dreamer. I dream 'cause it's the closest I'll ever get to